Well, I met him, I was a freshman, so I probably was 18 when I met him, and we started dating, soon after college. I'd say, right after, like, second semester, we started dating. And I got married after my sophomore year, so we dated a year and a half or so.
How did you meet the old man?
I lived with these two girls, and they were both home PE majors. I've said this before, but three never works. I had a bad experience as a child in seventh grade when there were three people that said they were being friends, and here we were, three people in an apartment. I don't remember, but we got into it. A fight of some sort, probably just name calling, yelling, and I left because I didn't want to be there. I went to the student union. And I sat at the student union, sucking on a cup of coffee, doing homework, and Bob Rader walked in and said, "I'm sorry, you'll have to leave. The Vets Club is having," they called them a coffee. We're having a coffee here. And what it is it's a social gathering between a club and a sorority, or two clubs or whatever. So he told me I had to leave, but that I could come back. It was maybe a 2-hour time frame that I could come back. So that's what I did. In fact, he probably said to me, "If you come back, I'll buy you a coffee." So I went to the library, and I did come back, and we kind of hit it off. And I think we discovered that we both lived up the same street. He probably walked me home, I don't know, but after that, we saw each other.
With each other at the same street up in
In
DeKalb?
DeKalb, right. I don't remember the name of the street, but it's where we lived, and so we just kind of hit it off, and he got me to go to different athletic events, because until then I was going home every weekend.
Now, what did you do when you were up in Northern? Were you involved in any clubs or anything like that?
Not actually. I was part of the pom-pom team, or a baton twirling team, with the band, but I wasn't, in any clubs as such. It's a little different in college than it is in high school. And your dad was very active with the Vets Club. After we were married, he became editor of the school paper, and I got a patronage job. I was the art editor of the paper,
And what paper was that?
the Northern Star.
Was it still around?
It was like I don't know if it came out monthly or whatever. It's a daily now, but I don't think it came out more than once or twice a month. But I got paid probably $25 a month for that, and I did hardly anything. But I was there for, layouts. I knew what they were talking about, and I did some cartoons and things like that. But it was strictly patronage. It was just an extra couple bucks in our pocket because we were just married. We could use the money.
No, how did Dad propose to you? Was it romantic, or was he just a bullhead?
No, yeah, that was it. I don't remember any proposals. I kind of remember talk about when we get married, that type of thing. And I didn't think anybody else was going to come along, so it sounded good to me. And
So you settled.
I settled. And you know what? My parents, my mother was against it. Not so much against Bob as she was against the thought that I was 20 years old talking about getting married.
How old was Grandma when she got married?
I don't know, but probably 24, 20, not much older.
And going back to Grandma and Grandpa, how long were they married for?
They were married, I will have to say, probably 54, 55 years when Grandpa died.
Because I do remember a 40th anniversary at Woody Acres.
Right, and a 50th at that church in
Right.
Alton.
Right, okay.
Not positive.
Can you tell me anything more about Grandma and Grandpa? I mean,
Well, just that my father was an outdoor person. He was very athletic. He liked to swim. He rode his bike every place. He loved to garden. After he worked at U.S. Steel, at that time, instead of laying people off, they gave their employees the option of taking 3 months off in the summer. It was with pay. It was like taking a 3-month vacation with pay. This way they kept the economy going. They didn't have to lay anybody off. But he was active in scouting, a Boy Scout, as even an adult. And so he hooked up with the Girl Scouts, and he used to work at Girl Scout camps on that 3 months that he was off from the steel mills. And he worked at Camp Juniper Knoll in Wisconsin.
is Camp Juniper Knoll still around?
I don't think think so. I don't think any of those camps were around. They maybe. There were 3 camps, Juniper, no, Woody Acres, and I should remember the third one, but I don't right now. But eventually he he took his retirement from U.S. Steel and he became caretaker at Woody Acres, which was in Bartlett at the time. And he transformed that from, a pile of junk into a very nice camp for inner city Girl Scouts.
Talk about animals, pets growing up.
My first recollection was Jingles. Jingles was a little terrier. My dad always called it a rat terrier. I don't know what that translates to now, but a little dog, and I don't know why they called him Jingles. I think I've seen pictures where one of my dad's relatives in Rockford or Pecatonica had this litter and we went and got this puppy. Jingles was my dad's dog. It might have been too young to remember any real training, housebreaking and that, but Jingles never left his side. And Jingles apparently just got old, and so it was not a trauma that I recall of putting Jingles down. And then we got Mitzi, and Mitzi was a Dalmatian that a friend of my mother's had bred, and so my mother got this Dalmatian. And then after my dad went up to Woody Acres, he got another little, no?
Not to Woody Acres.
Well, Nipper.
Juniper Knoll.
Yeah. Oh, Juniper Knoll, maybe, whatever.
Because that's what...
Nipper, yeah. He had another dog that was another small little terrier named Nipper.
Now, who is Nipper?
Who is Nipper? Nipper was a little dog, another little terrier.
Grandpa told me there was 2 reasons that he named the dog Nipper.
I don't know.
One was after the camp,
Yeah.
Juniper Knoll, and Nipper was the dog that heard his master's voice in front of the RCA Victrola.
Oh, okay, yes, that's true. Yeah.
And that's the kind of dog that it looked like. And I remember, the only reason I remember that is because I believe growing up that we had an old RCA console radio stereo that had...
I'm leaving for 1 second. I'm coming right back.
And who's this?
Well, this is, I believe, what Nipper looked like.
Yes.
The RCA dog, and the logo for RCA was this gramophone with the big, speaker thing, and then the little dog looked into it.
The Victrola with the gramophone
Yeah,
on it.
and this was what Nipper looked like. And
Exactly, and I remember that.
I have no idea where this came from.
It came from right over there.
Yeah, it probably was my mother's. Somebody probably gave it to my mom, maybe my dad. It's, one of these made in Japan, which means it's aged because now everything's made in China. But anyway, this is what Nipper looked like.
Now, speaking of the old Victrola,
Yes.
what music did you listen to growing up? Besides country American bandstand or whatever that thing was you said about. What was that?
Music
the popcorn?
Was,
you said something about
I don't know.
you would sit in front of the...
No, the radio for, the barn dance.
Who used to host the barn dance?
I don't know.
It
I'm
wasn't
old now, I don't remember.
the
Nope.
mayor of Schaumburg?
No.
What
I
was
don't
Robert
think
Asher?
Well, he was a country singer,
I thought he
but
was
I
on
don't
that.
I don't
Okay.
remember. He might have been. That part I don't remember. But music did not play the part in our lives that it does to kids today. But again, we were parochial schools, and we had our activities more involved. Playing store at somebody's house or riding our bicycles or stuff like that. It was not anything like what it is today. I do remember when I was in maybe eighth grade or perhaps a freshman, Johnny Ray was big in his song Cry, and there were a couple, Johnny Ray songs, but I couldn't tell you the popular songs of my day because we weren't into that.
But eventually you started listening to music. I mean, because some of my musical background comes from playing your records.
Well, we had, when I was in high school, my brother bought a little 45 record player, and that was the first time we actually went and bought records. And I, just would listen to whatever was there, but.
Well, I particularly remember back in either first or third grade, I want to say it was more towards third grade, that I brought in a 8x10 of some band from Liverpool.
Oh, yes.
And it had a little, maybe $half size record on it. And I brought it in because my mom told me about these guys. Okay. And my friends gave me a hard time because there was an American band called The Monkees that was on TV at the time. That the Beatles, Schmeatles, all we wanted was the Monkees. But I remember that you had this thing, which I would kill to have right now.
Absolutely. Well, I'd kill to have my Cupid down. I do recall in college, we used to play all this sentimental, romantic Nat King Cole. We probably had everything Nat King Cole ever sang, and that was in college. The Beatles, when the Beatles came out, you probably were maybe 2. And I can't say that I ever was crazy about the Beatles, but I got a reputation for being crazy about the Beatles just because I was that rebellious. While everybody else hated them and said they had stupid haircuts, I kept saying I liked them. I remember one year for my birthday, the neighbors got together and they bought me a little pin, a little gold pin. I think I still have it with 4 bugs on it. It never said the Beatles. If it did, it would be worth a lot today. But, they bought me pictures of the Beatles, and I really wasn't all that crazy about them. But, yeah.
Well, I just remember that I had that.
Yeah.
I also remember Barbra Streisand records.
Yeah, I always liked and still like Barbra Streisand. I was a Barry Manilow fan.
Big Barry Manilow fan.
Joan Collins. Now, I like Josh Groban and Il Divo, Andre Bocelli, all the Italians.
What about books?
I'm not a reader.
No, but I do remember there was a couple of, one book in particular.
Well, actually there were a couple, but the first book I recall reading in school, I read a book called Mrs. Mike. I'm trying to remember my age, so I'm going to say 4th or 5th grade. I don't know why, but I think I was given privileges at that age. Not that I was the only one. It wasn't a matter of that I was so smart or I was ahead of the others in the class, but that probably was the case. So instead of doing certain lessons while the rest of the class was catching up, I was allowed to read or I was allowed to go outside and do drawings. So Mrs. Mike was the first book I ever read cover to cover. It was about a woman who ended up marrying Mr. Mike in Alaska and her life in, the Arctic. And then after that, I'd pick up a book and I wouldn't read it, and I'd read a little bit. I got involved in Stephen King, and I was actually sick one time, maybe even in the hospital, and your dad, who reads constantly, gave me a book called The Godfather. I mean, this was not my book at all. So he gave me this book, and it was a book that I could not put down. I would stay up half the night reading it, go to sleep, and get up and read it again. But so that kind of got me turned on. I liked Stephen King for a long time. I read everything Stephen King wrote up until either I changed or he changed. But by the time I got to It, I felt that Stephen King was just getting very violent and very bloody. And I don't read Stephen King anymore.
Let's go back with the pets.
Okay.
You had Nipper, and Grandpa had Nipper though, but I was already around. And what did we have growing up, like when I was a baby?
Well, when you were a little bitty baby, there was a boxer dog that we called Saki. Somebody gave it to us, but we lived in DeKalb on a 3rd floor apartment. And Saki was a really pretty dog. He was very protective of you, but Saki got distemper. We could not afford to keep up with shots. Nowadays, well, even those kind of shots are not mandatory, but Saki got distemper, got sick, and had to be put down.
And where is he right now?
He's under the football field at Northern Illinois University. A Marine friend of your dad's took care of him, shall we say. And he was buried out there where they eventually put the football field. So.
Any other pets when I was growing up? There was some poodle that I hated.
Oh yeah, we had Babby. Poodles were the in thing, and somebody, I don't know who again, sold us a French poodle for $50 or so, which was a really good deal. And so we had a French poodle for a while, and they're more work than they were worth because it's just the breed. I guess I thought it was cute. I wanted it. We got it, but you know, again, the upkeep is phenomenal because they have to be clipped and they have to be taken care of. And Babby just walked away one day and didn't come back, and nobody seemed to care. And then there were the cats. We probably befriended a cat, and at one time had 12 cats living in our house. Most of them kittens, probably, you know, one adult female and then her offspring and their offspring, and we always had cats.
Now, you got married, you lived in DeKalb.
Lived in DeKalb for about 2 years.
And then there was an apartment complex, and there was an incident with me and Todd with banging on a wall with plaster.
Oh yeah, your dad taught school in Cicero, Illinois, and we had this really nice, it was part of a 2-flat, we lived downstairs in a 2-flat, this was right before Debbie was born. And it was nice, it had 3 bedrooms, and so you and your brother shared 1 bedroom, and then there was like a playroom. Then your dad and I were sitting in the kitchen, probably just conversing. We didn't watch television like people do now. And we kept hearing this knock, knock, knock. And I'd hear this knock, and I'd hear Todd giggle. And he was having such a good time. I love to hear babies giggling. Bang, 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 giggle, giggle, giggle. You know, and finally after about 10 or 15 minutes, you know, we said, what are they giggling in? And here you were sitting with a little wooden hammer, banging on the wall, and as the wall board broke and sent all this little dust over Todd, he was giggling about it. So then we had a good sized hole in the wall. We pushed a dresser in front of it. And so we moved out, and then we had to figure out how to patch it.
Oh, because I was told that that's why we were kicked out of that apartment complex,
That
is
is not
because
true.
of me and Todd doing
It had
that.
nothing to do with that.
Okay, so
We-
was
we
that in
left-
DeKalb?
Yes, we left that apartment because we basically outgrew it.
Okay.
Your dad took a different job.
And moved to where?
See, that was in Cicero. I think then is where we bought the
Well, you
house.
said that department was in DeKalb.
No, you were a year older when we left DeKalb.
Okay, so then this apartment was in Cicero.
In Cicero, correct.
I always thought it was the apartments off of Annie Glidden and 38 in DeKalb,
No.
by the McDonald's over there.
Yeah, we lived there for, we lived there for actually 2 years because Todd was born. So you were born a year after we were married, 13, 14 months, and then Todd was born 12 months later. And we moved out shortly after Todd was born.
I was born 11 months after you were married.
11? I was married in August and you
August,
were born in July,
July.
11 months, okay. And so we moved from there to Cicero because that's where your father was teaching school. From there we moved to the house well, you're staying Berwyn, but it was Cicero. We didn't live in Berwyn.
Oh, well, I thought we lived in Cicero, then Berwyn.
No, it's just they're right next to each
Okay.
other, no. So I think we lived from Cicero, we bought the house in Carpentersville.
347.
Right, Uncle Bob had lived out there, and at that time, you could get, the VA was financing homes for veterans, and they were just defaulting on their loans, and so the VA would take them back and sell them dirt cheap. So my brother already had lived out there, and it was a very nice house, 3-bedroom, 1-bath, basement. And your dad and I looked a lot of places, but we always had that kind of in their mind for the amount of money, you know, and I won't say we because your dad kept control of that, for what he thought we could afford. And so finally we made an appointment with a realtor to show us houses in Carpentersville. Carpentersville had a bad reputation at that time just because of the foreclosures, but anyway, that's where we looked. We saw several, and you know, it's like ticky-tacky, it's all the same. And I said, you know, where does my brother live? And it turned out the house that we were interested in was a block and a half from my brother. It was the exact same house, just turned a different way. And your dad and I bought that house for $13,000.
Wow.
And we lived there until Mark was born, which made that about 6 years. Because there were the 3 of you when we moved in. Yeah, because Debbie was already in school. And we sold it for $29,000.
Well, we moved out of there in 1973, so Mark was 4.
Yeah, when the realtor had sold another house down the street, and when he came, they always solicit, I'm selling the house next door. And so he knocked on the door and he said, "You guys thinking about moving?" And I said to him, "If you can get $30,000 for this house, I'll go." He says, "Okay, you're on." And about 2 weeks later, he said, "I have $29,500. So we took it and we moved. We moved to Schaumburg, to the Hinkle Lane house.
Hinkle Lane, right. Now in Carpentersville, you had, obviously we had Uncle Bob and Aunt Carol living down the street. Friends out there, jobs out there.
I worked at, I can't remember who went first, but there was a restaurant called Jim Sain's of Tralee Farm. Excuse me, Jim Sain was a big restaurateur on Rush Street in Chicago, and the son opened a restaurant here on a piece of property that was very nice. It was like a horse farm, so this big house he turned into a restaurant. I think maybe it was Aunt Carol that went there first as a waitress. Uncle Bob went there on cleaning crew. He used to work with another man as a side job with another man, and decided to go on his own. So he got the job cleaning the restaurant, and then somehow I got into it. I was hostess at that restaurant only on Saturday nights. That's the only night I worked. Maybe an occasional Mother's Day, Easter, but I worked one day a week. Actually, before that, before Mark was born, I was hostess at Howard Johnson's in Elgin. Forgot
That was
about
off
that.
at 25 by the
Yeah.
Kmart.
Yeah.
Now, did you ever work at the Kmart?
No, never
Okay.
worked at the Kmart.
I just remember going there a lot as a kid.
Yeah, I worked at Howard Johnson's. I
Howard
was
Johnson
there.
was in the front
Yeah.
lot, and Kmart was behind it.
Right. I worked there as a hostess for about a year, and that qualified me, I guess.
What about at Meadowdale Shopping Center?
I never worked there. Where would I have worked?
That big department store, I thought.
I,
Or in the mall,
No.
inside.
I never worked there. I developed friendships there. There was a
restaurant there that you worked at, I thought.
Oh, you know what? I did. I worked there briefly. It was called Harvest House. Yeah, you're right. I did.
Because Grandma Santa Claus, Mrs. Santa Claus used to have give away the sugar cookies right outside of the restaurant.
Okay.
And in the middle of the mall was the candy shop.
Yeah, you're right. I did. I guess that was after Howard Johnson's that I went to the mall there, and then I went. I don't remember why I left there. Oh, I did work at Singer. They had a Singer sewing machine. So I think I worked at the restaurant and then at Singer.
In that same mall.
In that same
Yeah.
mall. It was like a little wing. So.
Any of your friends that from high school or growing up that you keep in contact with?
Basically, no. I had this Joan Rusnick. I kind of know where she is. She was a teacher and she taught at Riverside Brookfield High School, and I think it's the only job she ever had out of college. A girl that I went to high school with, Carol Johnson, got married right out of high school, lost track of her, and just in the last 6 months or so reconnected with her. I hear from, my sister keeps more in touch with people at Luther South, and so I hear about people through her, but I just got an email, these classmates or whatever. I guess I'm on there. My 50th class reunion this is the year of my 50th reunion, and they're planning it, so they don't have it yet, but I just see names of people I know. None of them are people I was close to. In high school, I only had a handful of people that I was really close to. I don't see any of their names, so.
About how many people were in your graduating class? Approximately.
110.
Okay.
I don't think there were that many.
We moved from Carpentersville out to 117 Hinkle.
Correct.
In Carpentersville, who was your best friend?
Patu's Shed across the street, and there was Elaine Hanashevsky next door, and the Camachos on the other side. We were pretty good friends.
Hanashevsky.
Elaine Hanashevsky, Dean Hanashevsky.
Elshansky.
Oh, that's right, Elshansky, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Hanashevsky was somebody
And
else.
Caballero.
Caballero.
And then we had Touchettes.
Yeah, and there was somebody else,
Watsons.
and then the other side of Watson was somebody.
Yeah, I remember them
the
too.
But we used to.
And then we had Majeski's.
Right. And at that time, nobody worked. I mean, mothers stayed home with their kids, and so at 10 o'clock in the morning and 2 o'clock in the afternoon, we would be at somebody's house. except that I don't know that I had the youngest kids. Majewski's had younger kids, but it got to be a real drag, you know, coffee collection twice a day because nobody got anything done. Or I didn't get anything done, maybe they did. They probably always were Mrs. Clean, but a lot of coffee collection.
And then we moved to 117, and then you and Dad got divorced.
Mm-hmm.
We won't go into that.
We won't.
Talk to me about hex signs.
Oh yeah, they're hex signs, contrary to the belief that they are witchcraft. They are Pennsylvania Dutch signs. They are supposedly to ward off evil spirits. I'm not even sure how I got into that, but I just thought they were pretty, and they were, each sign had a message, and it just kind of fit into my decor. So I started collecting hex signs, and so my whole kitchen was barn signs, Pennsylvania Dutch barn signs.
But there was a little while there where you were like, I don't want to say exploring witchcraft.
Yeah, yeah, that is true, and I've talked about that. It was kind of a joke between Carol and I,
Mm-hmm.
and we always said that we were witches, we were white witches, and I guess it probably...
Meaning?
Well, I don't know, good witches.
I know. But
And I guess coming out of the fact that, I could sit with my back to the refrigerator and I would say, Bob, get out of the refrigerator. And
you said
kids,
Rob.
Kids always thought I had eyes in the back of my head, so it kind of got to be just a joke. And then, the joke expanded, which, knowing what I know now, it expanded into areas that probably, could have gone badly. But I used to read about things, and I was fascinated by, different things that I read that I believe were true. I mean, I believe witches exist, and I believe that the occult exists. And I had a few books on magic spells. It was just kind of a joke. I don't believe I ever really was into witchcraft. But when I met Jim, is when he pointed out to me how dangerous it was to even be funning about those things. And he wouldn't even let me give them away. I think he actually burned them.
You used to play a card game all the time.
Oh, hearts? Oh my heavens, I think that's why your father and I got our divorce. We used to play hearts. Every time 3 people got together, we would sit down and play hearts. And we played hearts, and Carol, another friend that I forgot, and her name, and Pat, somebody from the church with all those kids that lived up on the... There were 4 of us, but it only took 3 to play a game. So anytime 3 of us got together, we'd end up dealing hearts. And, we had a lot of fun with that. But to this day, I do not have an eye for details. I know the magic is in the details, and I can sometimes create details, but I can't remember them. And your father used to get very angry when I wouldn't remember what cards were played, and I stopped playing hearts with your dad when he got mad because I gave him the Queen of Spades. I mean, to me it was a card game. The idea was I win, you lose.
What's the significance of the Queen of Spades?
It was just a losing card, it had more points against you. The only time it was good is if you had the Queen of Spades and the whole run of hearts. Otherwise it was large points against you.
Right, so we moved out to Schaumburg.
Moved to Schaumburg.
And your best friend became?
Amy and Bob Heverly. Your dad and Bob worked together, and they were pretty close friends. And the Heverlys had lived in Schaumburg. She taught school, and they were buying a house over, in a new section. And because we were looking for a bigger house, again, we looked at several communities. And when we looked in Schaumburg, there were models up on Irving Park Road. I think there's a car wash there now. Oh, there's probably the houses are there. And I had all the floor plans from the Hefferleys' experience, and so I says, this is the house I like. It was the biggest, the best, I said, this is the house I like. I want to see that one the last. And so we did. We looked at all the other, I think there were 5 models. We did the other 4 models, and we looked at that one last, and I said, this is my house. It was beautiful. It was luxurious. The master suite was like a big hotel room. And, again, I told your father, we're only moving there if, we can afford it on his salary. His bark was little. And so we did buy it. We paid $43,000 for a house that now is selling for $300,000 and some thousand. It was a beautiful house. and the Hefferleys lived down the street. You know, and then we developed friendships with the neighbors because everybody was new. It was we were the first owners, and it was a very nice